As you begin to prepare for your persuasive speech, we want to examine one of the elements or the components of the rhetorical situation in a little more detail, and that is audience. If you remember in the rhetorical situation, there were 4 components. The occasion, so in other words, what occasion were you asked to speak at or prepare a speech for? Was it a ceremonial, a deliberative, or a forensic occasion? Secondly, it was the audience. Who are you speaking to? And why? Why is it important for that audience? Third, we looked at the speech itself, the information that you're bringing, the logical order of that information, and how you present that to your audience. And then finally, the 4th component of the rhetorical situation was the speaker, him or herself, remembering those 3 appeals: ethos, credibility, pathos, and logos. So let's look at audience a little more in depth. As you begin to prepare for your persuasive speech, you're going to be asked to do an audience analysis activity in lab. In other words, you're going to create a survey or a questionnaire for your lab mates based on your topic, gauging their knowledge of that topic, the attitudes, experience, opinions for or against, or how strongly those opinions or values are held. That will inform how you present the information and the information that you choose to include in that speech, as well as the next lesson, which will be linguistic style, the word choices that you make based on the understanding of your audience for the most impact as an effective persuasive speaker. Let's begin by looking at audience analysis and the components that are necessary. This is going to be a very short lesson, but I want you to take all of these factors into consideration as you begin to prepare for this speech, but as a professional moving out into any career, any opportunity that you have to speak where you're trying to engage with your audience and be effective, these concepts are going to be crucial. Let's look first at why these concepts about audience analysis, how they inform the speech itself. First of all, understanding your audience is very strategic. Who am I speaking to? What is their background, their knowledge of the topic, their opinions, their values? Understanding the audience itself allows you to realize how you're going to frame that topic. Now, it doesn't change your topic or your subject of the speech, but it allows you to understand what kind of lens should I use in approaching the information about this topic so that I can connect with my audience. It also informs, as we'll talk about later on, linguistic style, your language choices. How direct, how are you going to use language that is vivid or appropriate for your audience or create some kind of emotional appeal? Softer language, inclusive language, all of that is going to depend on who you have as an audience and how you want to connect with them. Third is humor. So depending on the audience that you have, let's say that you have been asked to be the best man or possibly a bridesmaid or the maid of honor at a wedding. So if you are going to be speaking at the rehearsal dinner, understanding that your audience includes the grandmother, the parents, friends, in a larger social environment than just your small group of friends, your intimate group of friends, then that's going to dictate the humor, the jokes, the stories that you choose to tell, because you don't want to embarrass that individual. Now, because that occasion has created an audience, let's say the rehearsal dinner, that is a wider audience, and it dictates the story that you choose to tell about that individual. That would be very different than at the bachelor or bachelorette party, where the audience is once again that more intimate crowd of friends, where you can use different types of humor. And that's just an example. The delivery style. Now, don't let style confuse you. Delivery means nonverbal messages. So how you use your gestures, your body language, as well as your voice, vocal variety. Your audience is going to dictate how engaged you are, the volume, or do you have a smaller crowd or a larger crowd, whether you have more of a conversational tone or not. So delivery style. And then finally, and I know this sounds a little awkward, but type of supporting material. Let's say that you're talking about a topic and you're giving the presentation to a group of academics, professors. Then the supporting material that you're going to want to use will probably be academic journals, scholarly articles. versus if you're giving that same topic but a presentation to a group of peers, where possibly the supporting material may be more of not necessarily a pop culture, but things that are less scholarly but more relatable to your audience. So type of supporting material is also dictated by who is in your audience. Now, let's look at some additional factors of our audience composition. The first is size. Understanding that your audience size has a lot to do with how you choose to deliver the message. If you're in your lab, you have 22 to 24 individuals in your lab. Giving your informative speech, you're able to use more of possibly a conversational tone. It influences the content as well as, once I said, that nonverbal gestures. In a smaller group, in a more intimate crowd, an audience, then that size will want to make you be less formal. You don't want to be stiff behind a podium and delivering something that's very formal when you have a smaller crowd. Versus, let's say you take that informative speech and then you go to the speak off. You're in Morgan Auditorium with over 400 individuals in the audience. Your style is going to be different. Your delivery is going to be different because you do have to be a little more rehearsed, a little more formal. Your gestures are going to have to be larger. It's going to have to be grand so that people can hear you or see you. Your vocal variety might need to be a little more dramatic as well. So size helps to dictate how you deliver your content as well as the speech. Secondly, let's look at diversity. Now, in every group, in every audience, obviously we're all heterogeneous, correct? We're all from a variety of backgrounds with different interests and demographic traits. But this depends on the topic of your speech, whether you view your audience as heterogeneous, in other words, diverse, or if you view your audience as homogeneous. Now, in this context, a homogeneous crowd really only has one or more significant demographic trait in common. Now, what would be an example of viewing your own lab as a homogeneous group? Let's say that your topic has to do with the University of Alabama. Everyone in that classroom has that in common. Therefore, you can view this group as a homogeneous audience. And then finally, understanding the status of your audience. Is it voluntary? Do they want to be there? Are they interested in coming to hear you speak because of the topic or because they're just interested in you as an individual? Or are they captive? Do they have to be there? We can look at our labs or any other classroom where there's some type of attendance policy as creating a captive audience. You have to be in that room, or there's some kind of punitive repercussion. There's a grade deflation, something that is going to make it where you have to be in that class, whether you want to or not. And that's very difficult. If you understand that your audience is a captive audience, then it can be onerous for a speaker because you're having to think about, my responsibility is not only to convey this information, but somehow it's also my responsibility to engage in this audience that might not want to be here or keep them interested. So understanding the status of your audience can be crucial to how you connect with them. We understand about demographics, right? They're the quantifiable characteristics or factors of a particular audience. Now, I said that you're going to do an audience analysis in your lab for your persuasive speech. So you have a topic, and maybe some of the questions that you're going to ask are demographic. In other words, are they going to be looking at the sex of the audience? How many males, how many females? Because let's say you have a primarily male audience. That may inform the information that you choose to bring to that in persuasive speech and how you connect with the audience. Also, gender, age, race or ethnicity, economic status, occupation, religious or political affiliation. As you move beyond the University of Alabama into whatever career that you want to go to, understanding your audience, even in these demographic traits, will help to understand or will help to inform you of how you can connect with them and how, very importantly, you can use language that will be inclusive and not exclusive of your audience. Finally, the things that you want to avoid. You want to avoid stereotyping, so making sweeping generalizations about a group of individuals or a group of a culture. No stereotyping about political affiliations. Being inclusive is going to be crucial in connecting with an audience. Ethnocentrism, in other words, understanding that your culture, our way of living and understanding how we operate as a society is not always how other people from diverse backgrounds view the world. So ethnocentrism, you don't want to feel like our way of understanding is everyone's way of understanding. And then of course what politicians tend to do is to pander to their audience. That means that they do a lot of background research into what their audience is, big audience analysis, but then almost in an unethical way they tap into those interests and identify with the audience's interests. In other words, creating almost this sense of more than is real, they're identifying with the audience. So here's an example of pandering. A couple of elections ago, Hillary Clinton went to a NASCAR race. Now, does anybody see Hillary Clinton as a NASCAR fan? No, of course not. But what happened was she chose that point in time to do some type of political, well, really a political opportunity for her because there was a female driver. And she used that to go and show her support, but also as a platform for validating her own interests as a woman and getting that support. It was pandering to that audience. She really didn't have anything in common with them, but she used that what she knew about the audience to her advantage. Now, what I am going to do is I'm going to post a couple of examples on YouTube along with this clip that you can watch and get a little more in-depth understanding about audience analysis. The next lesson will be linguistic style, and it will also be a pretty short lesson. Thank you.